Hey all, this is 012 Boku, and I'm coming at you with another movie review, or not a movie review, but TV review, and yep, we are back to 24 finally after so long. We are back to 24. Um, I don't know if we did the episode before. I don't think we did. I don't recall doing it. If we did, then my bad. I don't remember, but yeah, we are on 9 to 10 a.m. We have in this episode quite a bit going on. If you guys remembered in the last episode, Jamie Jamie Farrell tried to commit suicide. She's still barely alive. Tony and Nina are with her as they're seeing her wheeled away, trying to get her to a clinic so they can try to save her life. Jack Bauer, in the meanwhile, is trying to still get out. He's trapped in a police blockade while Nina's trying to quickly, try to get him out of it while trying to find this assassination hit on Palmer or who did it, and all these other things that are going on. So Nina Myers is doing a lot for Jack Bauer as well, and Jack's still trying to get out of this blockade where the cops are blocking him in, trying to stop him, and all these different things, and you know, say hey. And let's see, Terry and Kim try calling again from the stolen phone. Uh, you have Nina who's able to pick up. Jack's listening in. All of a sudden, Eli and Rick come back in. Eli's mad because he can't find his phone. Doesn't know what happened to it. He's looking into the women. Terry's trying to get the men to talk. Rather cleverly, so maybe they can release some information. At least that's what I think she was doing. Eli's just getting mad. He tries to, in many ways, attack Kim and Terry, but again, Rick keeps stepping in to stop it. Nothing happens yet, but it just continues on in this fashion for some time. You have, let's see, I'm looking at my notes. Oh yeah, you have Sherry Palmer still trying to argue with David Palmer about wanting to talk about Maureen Kingsley and Dr. Ferragamo about their son Keith, not having it come forward, not having it be a thing, just forgetting it and burying it. David Palmer says, she won't budge. There's nothing stopping this. It's going to come out. Sherry then, in her stupid wisdom, talks to Carl, and Carl tells Sherry not to worry. It's being handled. You have, I'm going to say, yeah, it is David Palmer's constituents who help, his donors sitting in a room, hearing this. One of the guys, I believe his name's Frank Ames, is unnerved by what Carl's saying. He doesn't say anything about it, though, as it goes on. You have a part where, as it continues, Jack, gets stopped by two cops. He's, letting the cops come close. He, rams the car in full gear, heads forward. The cops have to double back. He gets into a parking garage to where, or not parking garage, parking lot to where he sneaks out of the car and hides underneath a bunch of cars. The cops come in. Now, there's a glaring oversight that I'll mention in this episode. I don't mind it because it's believable, but it's also not as believable. But I'll tell you what that is in a minute. But the glaring oversight that I like to see is that you have Jack in this parking lot. He sneaks under the cars. The cops come in. There's I think 2 or 3 cops searching this parking lot for him. Jack's still on the phone with his family. Eli comes in, threatens the family, starts threatening Kim. Terry gets in the most of it. Oh, yeah, and again, I'll say that the phone is still working and on this entire time as Milo and the others are getting close to a trace. He's trying to narrow it down, but they're only within a 20-mile radius of what Milo can find. They're also dealing with, I believe, another new person comes in this episode. Her name's Alberta Green. She's taking over for Jack. You have you have Tony and Nina still trying to cover. Milo really doesn't know anything yet, but you have, Jack and Nina trying to still, or Nina and Tony still, Tony Almeida still trying to cover for Jack while keeping the secret from Alberta Green. Alberta Green is not happy with, Nina. Nina used to work for, or no, Alberta Green used to work for Nina, and those two are always trying to make power plays. You always have these sexual innuendos that Alberta Green is dropping at Nina about Jack and all these different types of things. So you can tell there's a lot of tension between those two. At the same time, again, going back to Jack and Teri and Kim, Jack is under the car listening to all this. You have the few times that Jack and Nina can talk is that, Jack's saying that, because I forgot to mention before Eli comes back in working for the phone, you have Jack telling his family, he's sorry for everything he's done. He'll be with them as a family. He won't let them down. Both, in a way, Kim and Teri are telling Jack, we don't need to do this now. We don't need to worry. There's all these different types of things. And, it just keeps continuing onward. And, Eli comes back in looking for the phone, threatens the women, and also the phone, Teri hid it so they could listen to the conversation on one of the rafter parts that's up in the barn. And, Jack's listening to this. You have Eli threaten, you have Eli threaten Kim. Kim is scratching Eli's face. Eli starts bleeding. And then, Rick tries to intervene, saying, trying to protect the women, don't kill him, Gaines wants him. He's playing it up. And you have Eli attacking Rick. It looks like Eli's about to stab Rick with a switchblade. All of a sudden, though, the phone starts bleeping, like the battery's running out. Eli looks up and notices this, and he notices that the girls did take their phone, and he says, who did you call? And, Eli picks up the phone and says, who is this? And Jack's like, I'm the last thing you'll see if anything happens to my wife or daughter. So, Jack Bauer did it first before, obviously, Liam Neeson didn't take. And as good as Liam Neeson's line isn't taken, and I still want to get at least the first Taken movie, I don't know about the other two, but the first Taken movie, as good as Liam Neeson is in that, I did like how, Kiefer Sutherland said it first because it was just awesome for Kiefer Sutherland to say. Because remember, until this show and until a few other things, because Kiefer Sutherland has been a good guy in other things, but he rarely does play a good guy. He's usually hired to be a villainous actor because he's so good at playing villains throughout his career in the 80s and 90s. And, and this is just so good as Jack Bauer. I'll just say that again. You guys hear me gush over Jack a lot. To this same credit, you have, Eli hang up the phone, they leave, Kim and Teri, are huddled together. I also forgot to say, too, Ira Gaines is on the phone. He's trying to expect something from Jamie. Jamie hasn't called back. He keeps trying to ask Jamie, where are you? Send a status report. All of a sudden, this guy calls him, and sounds like this guy's name is Drazen, but this Drazen guy is asking for an update on what Ira Gaines is doing. Ira Gaines says, no, nothing worked. And he's like, well, why is Senator Palmer not dead yet? There was a complication, but we'll find Bauer, use him as before. And he's like, well, I'm not interested in you recycling this plan. Just kill Bauer and the senator. And he's like, no worries, Bauer will come find us and we'll fix this. And then Gaines says, he'll be there within the hour to check on, or Drazen says he'll be there in an hour to check on Gaines' progress. And if he's not, and if he doesn't like what he sees, he's going to pull the plug on Ira Gaines. Ira Gaines looks very visibly worried, understandably so, because you can maybe sort of sense that this Gaines guy is the head of this operation, possibly. To the same time, Jack gets out from underneath the car, and you have, Jack getting out from underneath the car. He's walking away. He's doing what he needs to do. He basically gets into an old car, some of the old cars that had the side open windows on the side that you used to see. He gets one of those open, unlocks the door, hot wires the car, and he gets out of the parking lot. Now, what was funny about this, when he gets out of the parking lot, no other cops seems to notice only one car going away from the parking lot. I'm like, okay, one of those cops would have obviously spotted that. Maybe they were too deep into the parking lot. I mean, you don't know how big this parking lot was. But again, one of them should have noticed. So I'm going to say that's a bit of a, an actual real life gaffe. I mean, it doesn't bother me as much, but it's like, how does nobody not notice that? It's one thing that's always played in my mind is a nitpicky moment from that episode. But, Jack gets out and he's on his way. He's through the roadblocks. You have them going down. And then before we get to near the end, you have, Frank Ames, that one donor of Palmer's, call him up. And then, Palmer is at a school reading to kids and basically giving his stuff on education for what he'll do if Senator Palmer becomes president. And Senator Palmer, here's Mike saying one of his donors, Frank Ames, is on the phone. Palmer picks up the phone, talks to Frank Ames, and says, "What's up?" And then he's like, "David, I don't know what's going on here, but I just got out of a meeting with Frank Tuttle. I forget the second donor's name," and he said Carl Webb. And he's like, I don't know what happened with this whole Ferragamo thing, but this has gotten out of hand. And, you have Palmer trying to calm Frank Ames down, telling him, saying, "Frank, what are you saying? What's going on? What's happening here?" And he's like, "David, no, I don't know what's going on. This is going on too far. But this, I put up with a lot of dirty things. I'm not going to do this." And he's like, "Frank, just tell me what's going on." And he's like, "I am out of it, David. I'm washing my hands of you and your whole campaign." And just hangs up the phone. And it leaves it there where Palmer looks at Mike Novick, his chief of staff, or future chief of staff if he becomes president, and says, "I want to talk to Carl now." And that's where the scene leaves at it. Because apparently Carl, is going to be there at the hour, so he sets up a meeting with Carl. And then, as well, you have Jack on the roadways trying to, find out this link. And, Nina found a link to where it's a guy named Ted Koffel who, Jamie had some contacts to get this money for the wire of $300,000 or something like that. So he's going to look up this contact. Oh, I forgot to mention, too, at this point, too, Tony got an important phone call. Jamie died from her complications of her suicide attempt, and they weren't able to save her, so Jamie sadly died. I mean, you could tell it was going to be a hard sell. She was all pale and gray and possibly out the door even when she left the place. But yeah, Jamie Farrell is dead at this point, and it's just a sad thing because, if you liked her or just wanted to know more motivations of why she did it, we don't know, but this Ted Koffel was possibly part of it. So, Jack, thinking this is his only lead, is heading to this Ted Koffel's office and getting through the traffic. And, he gets to the office and he tries to, as he's getting to the office, he calls his Ted Koffel's office. His secretary on the phone, his secretary's like, "No, he's not in. Who is this?" "Oh, I'm a friend. I want to speak to him. Is he going to be in for a little bit?" And she's like, "No, he's going to be leaving for an early flight. Can we leave a message?" He hangs up the phone, hightails it to Koffel's office, gets there, goes up to, Koffel's floor on this big building, and, Ted Koffel basically leaves the office. Jack calls one more time to make sure he's there. He's still there, but he's on his way out. And then, Jack goes up, but he's not really saying much, and cleverly so he can avoid suspicion. But he goes up. Ted Koffel goes down. The secretary's like, "Yeah, there was a friend, somewhat weird calling you." He didn't give his name, but he's like, "Was he up right now?" And she's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Probably just another salesman. Don't tell him anything." And he gets into the elevator, going down. Jack gets up at the floor, like maybe 1 or 2 seconds later, and he says, that he hears the secretary talking about Ted Koffel, and he's like, "Wait, is Ted Koffel here?" And she's like, "Oh, he just, left for the day to the parking lot. He's on his way down." Or maybe she didn't say parking lot, but she said he left for the day. And Jack tries to rush into the elevator, knowing he took the elevator, but the elevator door closes, and he just runs, hightails it down the stairs with this great sort of rock score interlude by, great music by Sean Callery. I've got to say, great score by Sean Callery in this episode. And, he's running down the stairs to buy himself some time. He hits a fire emergency exit thing, like the fire alarms on the side of the stairwell, because I know they do have some of those in the stairwells in those buildings. And, he keeps going down. All of a sudden, the elevator stops, and Koffel's telling the people inside with him, saying, "Hey, there's nothing to worry. These elevators will start up again after a 30-minute or after a 30-second stop, and it'll go down." He's like, "It's probably nothing to worry about." And, Jack keeps running down the stairs. He basically gets there with a minute or two to spare at the bottom of the stairs, all worn out, and he's looking around. and he's checking around. He doesn't see Ted Koffel anywhere in the parking lot. And he basically runs and sees there's a driver with this limo. And he's like, hey, can I talk to you? Are you Ted Koffel? Do you work for Ted Koffel? He's like, yeah, I'm his driver. Hey, I'm a federal agent. Can I talk to you for a minute? And then he brings the driver to the side. You have Koffel get there, and Koffel's like waiting up front. All of a sudden, you see the limo pull up. Ted Koffel gets into the limo, and he drives away. And, he's getting there, and he's like, Mark, could you turn the air back on here? You see someone flip the air on the car. And in the front of the seat is Jack Bauer. So obviously he was able to convince the driver to let Jack drive and to, not be there. So, it's definitely not his main driver. So, that was essentially that episode. I know there was a lot to do there, and I broke it down quickly, but hey, I believe I got all main points of the episode. This episode was, very fun. And, hold on. Let me get to the cast again. Again, I'm not going to say any... Oh, and I also forgot to, in this episode too, there's a moment where after, because I forgot before I get to the cast, there's a moment where Teri's stomach hurts and she's bent over, and then you have Kim look up at her mother and say, they don't know, they don't say his name, but he's like, he hurts you, meaning Eli. And she's like, no, it's okay. It's okay, I'm fine. And then she sort of doubles over again, still in pain. Not noticeably, but we can tell something's bothering Teri Bauer. And we don't know what it is yet. But, Kiefer Sutherland, Jack Bauer, great acting from Kiefer Sutherland, as always in this episode. His run down the stairs, which I think they did say they did some edits, but Kiefer Sutherland really did run down all those stairs in whatever building they were using. So that was on location. That was not a set. That was on location in a real building, to where, like they said, they did do some edits of that, but he did really run down all those stairs, not in one take, but, he, from wherever they had him start, he just kept doing that multiple times. So credit for Kiefer Sutherland having the stamina and the body conditioning to do that, because that would wear anybody out. I have to give it to, let's see, Dennis Haysbert again, David Palmer. I mean, everybody was good in this episode, but yeah, Dennis Haysbert, David Palmer, Senator David Palmer, just great performance from him, especially when Frank Ames calls and, his worry of wondering what's going on. Plus, his dealing with Sherry is still just, holy crud. I have to also give it to Tamara Toomey, Alberta Green. She comes in as a real hard-edged, hard-ass, and, I mean, I would like to give a small nod to Sarah Clark, who played Nina Myers, as well as, because she was great in this episode too, but Tamara Toomey just oozes this arrogant, by-the-book, or I'm trying to get ahead person, and Tamara Toomey just played it so well. Now, let's see, where else, let's see. And then, I'll probably also give, because like I said, everybody was good here, and there weren't a lot of huge standout performances yet, but I have to also give it to, probably the final one, Zach Grenier as Carl Webb and Penny Johnson-Gerald as Sherry Palmer together. That conversation they both had over the phone was so good. Carl Webb is such a great slinky character, and the way Zach Grenier plays him is just so well done. And Penny Johnson-Gerald, as you can tell, a woman who's done a lot of shit by this point, as you can tell in the shadows, is wondering, what Carl's up to. Is he really considering killing somebody? Because you can tell she's mulling it over in her mind. She's thinking about it, but she's not trying to say it. And she knows Carl's going to take something really big in his hands here with Dr. Ferragamo. So she played it really well. But overall, a great episode for Jack getting out of being arrested, going back to the FBI. Him finding, thankfully, another lead, sadly, because of Jamie Farrell's death, even though we don't know what this Ted Koffel does yet. And at the same time, the furthering of the Dr. Ferragamo situation with Senator David Palmer and Kim and Teri Bauer's predicament of being murdered. And now we seem to have the head honcho, this Drazen guy, coming in and, possibly creating problems for Ira Gaines and crew. So is Ira Gaines going to be able to get this back on track or not? But hey, whatever you guys know, just let me know down below. And what do you think of 24 season 1? Again, this is a personal favorite season of mine. I pretty much love all the show overall, but I'll tell you what my favorite seasons are. And season 1 is another, it's a big time favorite. Season 1 is a really good favorite. And just let me know what you guys think down below, and we'll get this discussion going. Until then, this is 012 Boku, and I'll talk to you guys again with another review. All right, see ya.